Madagascar, island paradise in the Indian Ocean. It's home to a unique animal and plant kingdom. A place filled with myth and magic.
Madagascar, I know Sarea. Madagascar, I know Sarea.
500 kilometers off the east coast of Africa lies the island of Madagascar, only discovered by humans around 2,000 years ago. They came from Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. The diverse origins of the Malagasy tribes are evident today in their lifestyles and traditions. Home to the fishermen of the Vezo tribe is Anakau in the southwest of Madagascar. It's a remote region and hard to reach over land. The Vezo live primarily on the water and fish according to traditional methods. Outriggers are the most important possession here. They're used not only for fishing, but also to transport all kinds of goods. The only way to get from one place to another quickly is by boat. The inland is impassable and inhospitable. Just a short distance away from the beach, the dense Madagascar spiny forest begins. This is no place for human beings. But there's an astonishing array of animals living in the thorny brush, such as the mouse lemur and the red-capped kua. The beautiful markings on its shell have made the radiated tortoise a popular addition to terrariums around the world. At home, it's threatened with extinction. Many of the plants growing in the spiny forest of southwestern Madagascar have never been documented, biologically or pharmaceutically. The highly respected local healers, however, have known since time immemorial which leaves, blossoms, bark and wood are effective against sickness. This green pharmacy is still integral to their healing practices today. As inhospitable and repellent as they might look, spiny forests are rich in bizarre animal and plant life that has adapted itself in many ways to the extremely dry conditions. Moisture-retaining stalks and leaves and well-fortified thorns and barbs help the plants to survive heat and water shortages. The sunbird feasts on the honey of the aloe blossoms. Most of the plants and animals in the spiny forest of Madagascar can only be found here. This chameleon is one of them. Normally it moves very slowly, imitating the movement of swaying branches. To get from one tree to another, it has to climb to the outer tip of a branch and hope that the wind will blow it to within reach of another tree. A rather precarious situation, as here it's visible to birds of prey. Made it. The chameleon can easily hide from enemies in this maze-like plant. The Madagascan sand lizard has a so-called pineal eye on the top of its head. Biologists believe that this light-sensitive organ helps regulate the reptile's circadian rhythm. Surprisingly, there's actually water in the subsoil of this arid region. Prehistoric stalactite caves provide nocturnal birds with shelter during the day. A real rarity, however, are the blind fish. Their eyes have completely disappeared, a sign that they've been living isolated in darkness for millions of years.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen, all for free. No subscription required.
The Vezo are considered to be the children of the sea. Motorboats are rare around here, as they're much too expensive. Many families still live mainly on the sea. They sail from one island to another along the huge coral reef that lies just off the west coast of Madagascar. Up till now, they've enjoyed rich fishing grounds. But increasingly they're forced to share this wealth with international fishing fleets that descend on the coastal waters of Madagascar and threaten the livelihood of the Vezo. Much of the reef off the west coast is still an almost pristine underwater paradise. But climate change is taking its toll here too. Rising water temperatures cause many corals to die off. The reef still manages to rejuvenate itself, harboring a breathtaking coral landscape and offering the Vezo tribe bountiful fishing grounds. Swimming or flying, the red-tailed tropic bird lives far out to sea. It only goes ashore to breed. An ideal location for it is the little island of Nosive, about half an hour by pirogue from Anakau. There are no voracious rats, so these seabirds can raise their young unmolested. The young still have black bills, but at 6 weeks old they're almost full grown, and the adult birds spend longer periods away from the nest. Madagascar is huge, almost a small continent in itself, with widely differing landscapes. It's 1,500 kilometers from the dry coast in the southwest to the humid northeast. The Masoala National Park is home to the Indri. They are early risers. High up in the treetops, they begin their search for tasty leaves. It's the largest of the lemur species to have evolved only on Madagascar. Indris are sacred animals and may not be killed or eaten. In Malagasy mythology, they are man's brethren. Their eerie cries are intended to stop other groups from trespassing on their territory. Once the dawn chorus is over, the noise level in the forest dies down, and the Indri family devotes itself to essential matters like grooming and eating. Augustin and Felix are nature guides and know virtually all the species in the Masoala National Park and where to find them. The white-headed lemur is a tree dweller and is indigenous to the rainforest in the island's northeast. The rare leaf-tailed gecko is perfectly suited to its surroundings. Its days are spent upside down on a tree trunk, and it only moves when disturbed. But at night, it goes on the hunt for insects. Trees with these ferns growing on them are also regarded as sacred by the Malagasy. They believe that this is where the souls of departed babies rest. Taboos like this often serve to protect nature better than scientific argument. The national park in the Masoala Peninsula is the biggest nature conservation area in northeastern Madagascar. It's where the forest meets the sea almost seamlessly. The thickly wooded terrain rises steeply behind the beach. Only a few humans have settled here. The sparse villages are hidden behind the trees. True natives of the island live in the forest. While some cuddle together ready to sleep, others are just waking up. The Fauna, for example. The Fauna is one of Madagascar's few predators, though it's harmless to human beings. Masoala's rainforests lie in a region with one of the highest levels of precipitation on Earth. Some 4,000 litres of rain per square metre falls here every year. The massed cloud banks of the southeast trade wind offload their rain onto the steep mountains in the east. Like a sponge, the rainforest soaks it up, giving moisture-loving creatures an ideal habitat. For a long time, the Malagasy were left to themselves on their island. In their isolated location, in the thrall of overwhelmingly powerful nature, they developed a unique mythology and religion. Lakes, mountains, trees and animals are often said to be sacred or fadi, which means untouchable or taboo. Chameleons are held to be harbingers of fortune, sometimes of ill fortune, or even to house the souls of the dead. It is unlucky to point directly at a chameleon. Nature guides Augustin and Felix are careful to observe this taboo as well. Madagascar is the land of the chameleon. Some 60 different species live in the various climatic regions of the island. That's almost half of the chameleon species known worldwide. There are many tales that tell of the nature of these bizarre creatures, like this one. The chameleon was once the fastest animal on Earth. One day, it ran over the Son of God by mistake. In his wrath, God threw the chameleon to the ground. When it came to, it looked all around in all directions to see what had happened, and swore that from that day on, it would only walk very slowly. Since then, it considers each step very carefully, so that it will never tread on the Son of God again. The chameleon's eyes can focus on objects up to 1 kilometer away. They scan the environment independently of one another in search of likely prey. Once it has located what it's looking for, its lightning-fast tongue does the rest. In the interior of Madagascar lies the mountainous region of Andringitra. It's a remote area. The locals live mainly off what they grow themselves. The weather here is variable. In the mountains, some of which are up to 2,000 meters high, tremendous storms often occur. The majestic mountains and mystical cloud formations seem almost otherworldly, suggesting the spirit world of the holy Andringitra mountain range. The Andringitra National Park is an unusual conservation area. It's a habitat for valuable orchids and rare animals that can only be found in this region. This huge highland area was only made accessible to the public in 1998. It's a gem of a landscape, especially because of the rare orchids that grow wild in the fields. Napoleon Rakoto Jauna is a nature guide and knows the names of all the plants and animals. The high plateau is a gigantic reservoir. Small streams flow together and swell until the water finally pours over a rocky ledge and drops down into the valley. Legend has it that long ago, a royal couple was cured of their childless state here. Since then, the spot has been sacred. For Napoleon, just the right place to call on the ancestors. As the head of his family, it's his duty to ask for guidance and benevolence from his departed ancestors. Whether Christian, Muslim or Buddhist, traditional ancestor worship remains at the core of their belief for almost everyone in Madagascar. The waters of the high plateau eventually flow into the forests on the mountain slopes and are transformed into countless little rivulets and brooks running through the undergrowth. The damp forest is home to many species of birds and insects. Golden orb weaver spiders choose sunny spots in which to spin their webs, which can be up to 2 meters wide. The golden cobwebs are so strong that hundreds of years ago people used to weave fabric out of them. But to produce just a small piece of silk took the cobwebs of hundreds of thousands of spiders, which soon put an end to that method of silk fabric production. Water is the basic prerequisite for growing rice, and there's no shortage of it in the region. Countless trenches and channels ensure that the water reaches to the very farthest corner of the terraced rice paddies. At the foot of the mountains, there's a group of ring-tailed lemurs living in the forest. Known locally as maki, they live in large family groups. They're extremely communicative and keep in contact with each other by means of loud screeches. With their unmistakable markings and cute behavior, they've rightfully been chosen as Madagascar's mascot. Some more symbolic creatures can be found on the west coast. Zebus live everywhere in Madagascar and represent great wealth. Also used as sacrificial animals, they are indispensable for ancestor worship. The island's most famous tree is the baobab. It's said that baobabs were planted upside down by the maker by mistake, and instead of their branches, it's their roots that reach to the skies. They're said to have healing, even magical properties. According to local law, the trees near this lake can even cure women of infertility. And who can resist their magical attraction? Only about an hour's drive from the baobab landscape lies the sea. Here, the typical local cargo sailboats, known as boutres, sail up and down the coastline. The shores here are often covered in mangrove swamps. They form an effective barricade against the formidable cyclones. Their thick root systems give the mangroves a solid foothold, and their fruit is shaped so that it falls like an arrow into the swampy morass and takes hold there. Fiddler crabs live among the seedlings. At ebb tide, they crawl out of their little caves to look for food. Their mouth parts filter the sand for everything that's edible. The rest is discarded in the form of little balls. Mangroves and their saplings are unfazed by the constant ebb and flow of the ocean. The salt water is not a problem for them either. On the contrary, they need this extreme habitat between the sea and the land. The mudskipper is another extremist, a fish that lives more on land than in the water. The fertile mangroves are not only a refuge for crabs, insects and birds, they also provide a safe spawning ground for fish. Fishermen can't make big catches here, but the labyrinthine mangrove roots protect the future generations of fish that will probably ultimately land up in their nets out at sea. Fishermen often spend all day in their dugouts. It isn't easy to catch enough fish to feed an entire family, and there are few other sources of income around here. Even children build their own boats out of wood offcuts and plastic bags. They start learning early. Sailing a boutre is especially challenging. There's no room for modern technology. There are no engines and no navigation equipment. The captain and his crew rely entirely on their own sailing experience. Calm or storm, it's the only thing that brings them safely back to harbour, time and again. Madagascar has changed a great deal since the first settlers arrived from across the ocean. But this unique island world has still managed to retain much of its wild, natural beauty. And this is how the fascination of Madagascar lives on. Sri Lanka, formerly known as Ceylon. Almost as large as Ireland, the tropical island lies off the southeast coast of India. It's a land full of cultural and scenic diversity. And it's a nature paradise, rich in species with exotic flora and fauna. To the west, where the sun sinks into the Indian Ocean, lies Colombo, the capital of Sri Lanka. Nothing remains of the rustic charm of this former fishing village. The Colombo of today is a modern metropolis and a major port for the world's trade routes. But Colombo is also the city of temples. Sri Kailasanathar Swami Devastanam is one of the oldest Hindu temples in Colombo, with shrines dedicated to Lord Shiva and Ganesha. The temple tower symbolizes mystical Mount Meru, seat of Lord Brahma and the demigods. Nearby is the Colombo railway station, starting point for one of the island's most popular train journeys. Pulled by a steam-driven locomotive, this historical train is a favorite with locals and visitors alike. The wood-panelled compartments hark back to bygone British colonial days. The showpiece of the lovingly restored train is the restaurant carriage. And of course, the bar. The nostalgic journey heads towards the center of the island. Visitors from abroad are greeted by traditional Sinhalese dancers. And they're welcomed by an elephant. The animal is sacred in this country. The interior of Sri Lanka is fertile and lush. A tropical climate predominates in most of the lower-lying regions. Despite the high population density, it's an ideal habitat for plants and animals. There are more than 400 species of birds on the island, 27 of which are unique to Sri Lanka. Countless lakes supply the fields and the virgin forests with abundant water. Shimmering white stupas are Buddhist monuments that can be seen from miles around. In Sri Lanka, they're called dagobas and are found in every temple compound, often with holy relics sealed inside them. The country's culture has been shaped by Buddhism for over 2,000 years. "70% of the country's inhabitants are Buddhists, but Muslims, Christians, and especially Hindus live here too. For years, warlike skirmishes with the Hindu Tamils gripped the country, but peace has reigned since 2009. It was not only the people who suffered during the many years of armed conflict. During the Civil War, many elephants were killed by landmines or died from gunshot wounds. They used to be regarded as an endangered species, but lately their stocks have slowly begun to rise. Today, there are some 4,000 wild Asian elephants living on Sri Lanka, thanks to numerous conservation projects. Asian elephants don't grow as large as their African cousins, and they have smaller ears. In the past, they were hunted for their precious ivory. Today, it's generally only for photo opportunities. This bull elephant is obviously feeling perturbed. Not an entirely safe situation, as bull elephants can weigh up to 5.5 tons and can easily flip over a jeep full of passengers. Luckily, he soon loses interest. Deep tracks in the rice paddies are clear proof that elephants don't just stick to a diet of leaves and grass. A fully grown pachyderm needs about 150 kilograms of sustenance every day. They can destroy a whole crop and with it an entire livelihood with their foraging excursions. For centuries, farmers here have guarded their fields at night to frighten off the elephants with noise or even weapons. Out of reach of the elephants, they've built little huts in the rocks or in treetops. These elevated sentry posts offer good views and are an effective early warning system against possible marauders. But the nights are long. To stay awake, farmers recite long poems called pelkavi, handed down the generations, and today taught in heritage lessons in schools. There are more than 5 million cars, buses and motorcycles riding around on Sri Lanka's roads. In only the past 5 years, the number of vehicles has doubled. These vehicles not only serve as a means of transport for people and goods, but also as a status symbol and sometimes even as a market stall. The market on the edge of the town of Dambulla is both rendezvous and bazaar for the entire region. Everything is available here, from fruit and vegetables to household utensils and betel leaves, said to be stimulating as well as good for your health. There is every possible variety of sweets and especially spices and vegetables on offer. Much of Sri Lanka's widely varied cuisine is vegetarian, as many Far Eastern faiths prohibit the consumption of animals. Some 70 kilometers east of Dambulla lies Polonnaruwa, the ancient royal city. In the 11th and 12th centuries, this was the capital city of the island kingdom. Grand temples, statues and palaces were erected and still bear witness today to the power and importance of Sinhalese royalty. The 10-hectare archaeological park attracts hundreds of visitors every day, not only from overseas, but locals too. It was one of the most significant epochs in the history of Sri Lanka. The ruins today are a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage. The grounds offer many peaceful oases. Jacanas live up to their name of lily trotters as they hunt among the lotus blossoms. There are plenty of insects, amphibians and little fish to make it an ideal refuge for them, despite the tourists. The reclining Buddha statue is one of Sri Lanka's most important artworks. A symbol of Buddhism revered to this day, it attracts many admirers. These ruins are inhabited by tribes of Ceylon bonnet monkeys, a type of macaque, who enjoy nothing more than digging into the offerings left by the devout. A paradisiac life, only rarely threatened by dangerous neighbors, such as this monitor lizard. Macaques live in large family groups and belong to the few primate genera that can swim and even dive. Dark looming clouds signal a change in the weather. Sri Lanka's tropical climate has 2 monsoon seasons that bring heavy rainfalls. But not everywhere, as the mountainous central region creates an effective meteorological divide. This leads to the island having very different climate zones. While it might be raining in the interior, the southwestern coast is basking in bright sunshine, perfect beach weather. The white beaches of Sri Lanka were once a holidaymaker's paradise. Until Christmas 2004. The tsunami of the century hit not only Indonesia and Thailand, but destroyed the south and eastern coasts of Sri Lanka completely. Almost 40,000 people lost their lives, buildings and boats were demolished, and the country's infrastructure was totally disrupted. The effects of this natural disaster will be felt for a long time to come. There is still not enough money to rebuild villages and replace boats. The fishermen aren't starving, though. Their traditional method of trawl fishing yields rich bounty. Helpers all receive a share of the catch, and there are always takers for the rest. Rice paddies as far as the eye can see. It seems as if most of the island is covered in them. But the rice produced here is only enough for domestic needs. Rice is the dietary staple and is eaten at every meal. Countless dams supply the water so essential for rice crops in the paddies. The dams are a great favorite with water buffaloes. Strong yet peaceable, these powerful creatures have for centuries been employed here as working animals. Wallowing in water and mud cools their skin and protects them from irritating insects. To grow a kilogram of rice, you need between 3,000 and 5,000 litres of water. During the monsoon season, rain is plentiful. When the monsoons are over, the 2,000-year-old irrigation system, with its man-made dams and channels, ensures that the rice paddies can be used all year round. High-yield rice crops can be sown and harvested 2 to 3 times a year. Local farmers each farm their individual allotment. The work is exhausting and usually only brings in enough to feed their own family. But most Sri Lankans still live off the land. As in every Buddhist country, there are numerous stupas on Sri Lanka, with elephants as symbolic elements. Originally, stupas were built as tombs for eminent monks, but soon became a symbol of the teachings of Buddha.
Last round, boys and girls.
One should always walk clockwise around a stupa. This is said to improve one's own karma.
Okay, we've finished our karma now.
A belief in reincarnation is useful if you happen to be driving a car in Sri Lanka. hair-raising overtaking maneuvers on the narrow roads seem almost obligatory. Hooting is pretty well mandatory too, and no one takes offense. It's a long bus ride along a winding mountain road to the central highlands of Sri Lanka. The landscape with its montane rainforests rises up to 2,500 meters above sea level. With the Declaration of Independence from the British Commonwealth in 1972, Ceylon was renamed Sri Lanka. However, Ceylon tea is still recognized today as a symbol of quality. Together with India, Kenya, and China, Sri Lanka is one of the largest producers of tea in the world. And the area around the city of Nuwara Eliya is a major tea-producing region. Nuwara Eliya lies about 2,000 meters above sea level. With an average temperature of 16 degrees centigrade, the climate here is ideal for growing tea. Tea harvesting is women's work. A stick indicates which leaves and buds may be picked. Whatever grows above the level may be harvested. A woman can harvest around 18 kilograms of tea every day, for which she's paid around $2. The tea leaves are then taken to a nearby collection point, where every sack is carefully weighed and the weight noted. After this, the green tea leaves are put through a complicated process of fermentation and drying. The uplands around here rarely get hot or sunny. The climate is temperate, and abundant rainfalls are the source of its many creeks, rivers, and waterfalls. The roaring of the cascading falls creates a constant backdrop of sound, as an artist works on capturing the scenery's natural beauty. In the 19th century, British colonial officers used to come to Nuwara Eliya to rest and recuperate. Many of their buildings and gardens are still preserved today. It was the era of the powerful tea barons. Ceylon tea became world famous. One of the most popular tourist destinations in the country is the elephant orphanage. Despite elephants having a very special status in Sri Lankan culture, an estimated 200 of them are killed by people every year. A baby elephant losing its mother in this way has very little chance of survival in the wild on its own. The elephant orphanage provides a refuge for these babies. Older elephant cows often adopt these calves as their own, even though they did not give birth to them. Visitors are able to get up close to the animals here and observe their behavior. In very hot weather, elephants will fan their ears. As the ears are well supplied with blood vessels, they function as a cooling system for the whole body. The elephant orphanage herd consumes several tons of food every day. Their keepers have to work hard just to keep up. In the afternoon, well fortified and in an orderly fashion, they head off to somewhere very special. Every day, the elephants bathe in a nearby river. The water cools them off, its wetness helping to soothe their skin. For visitors, this lively spectacle is definitely a high point of the day, as it obviously is for the elephants too. At around 5 years old, the young elephants are able to look after themselves. They're then released into the wild in a protected national park to live in freedom in one of the greatest places of the world, Sri Lanka.